Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Los Angeles City Council. Today is Wednesday, May 3rd, 2006, and we are in John Ferraro Council Chambers here in room 340 of City Hall, where we meet each Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, except for the first Friday of the month, including this coming Friday when we meet in Van Nuys City Hall. So we'll remind folks that this Friday we'll be meeting in our chambers at Van Nuys City Hall. We invite people to come down here and speak in public comment, which is for items that are not agendized but are under our jurisdiction, or for items that have been agendized for public comment at each of these meetings. And you can also do that by remote through our Van Nuys City Hall if that's closer to where you live. We're broadcast each day on Channel 35 live. We also are rebroadcast in the evenings. And you can watch us through a webcast at our city's web homepage at www.lacity.org. If you can't get to a computer or a television, you can always call into council phone at 213-621-CITY and listen to the proceedings of the City Council or our committees as well. We are currently awaiting a quorum, which is 2/3 of our 15 members or 10 members. I want to thank Council Members Gruhl, Mr. Labange. Thank you to Councilmember Perry, Councilmember Rosendahl for being here. We have 5 members. That means we are waiting 5 more. Mr. Parks and Mr. Zine are excused for today. So if the other members can make their way down, we are now waiting for Councilmember Cardenas, waiting for Councilmember Hahn, waiting for Councilmember Huizar, waiting for Councilmember Padilla, waiting for Councilmember Reyes, waiting for Councilmember Smith, waiting for Councilmember Weiss and Councilmember Wesson. If those council members can please make their way down, those council members that are here and in accordance with council rules to be present at the beginning of each meeting at 10 o'clock, we will begin as soon as possible. Thank you. Again, I want to thank Council Members Gruhl, Labange, Perry, Rosendahl for being here in timely fashion in accordance with our council rules. Councilmember Cardenas, if you could make your way down to council, we're waiting for you. Councilmember Hahn, if you could make your way down to council, we're waiting for you. Councilmember Huizar, if you could make your way down to council, we're also waiting for you. Councilmember Padilla, if you'll make your way down to council, we are awaiting you. Councilmember Reyes, if you make your way down to council, we are awaiting you. Councilmember Smith, if you'll make your way down to council, we're awaiting you. We've had word that Councilmember Weiss is about 20 minutes out and will be late. And Councilmember Wesson, if you will make your way down. And this time I'd like to recognize from the podium Mr. Tom Labange, the council member from the 4th District, for an announcement.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. Today we have some very special young people today from Victoria Avenue School in Southgate, California. Please stand and let's recognize them. Okay, give them a big hand. And I want her to come too. Okay, this is the president of the Victoria Avenue School. What's your name?
Kevin. Tell us.
Kevin, tell us. Kevin, tell us a little about your school and all these great students. What's your name? Anna, you're next. Okay, say hello. Tell us about school and tell us what you love about school.
What I love about school is all the stuff we learn that my teacher teaches us and everything.
Great. And who's with you right here? What's your full name?
Brianna Mira.
Say it again.
Brianna Mira.
Brianna Mita. Give Brianna a big hand right now. You want to say something? How many of you like American Idol right there at Victoria School? Anybody want to, all right, what song do you want to sing right now? Come on. This is your chance. Anybody want to sing a quick song? Huh? Here's a failure from Victoria Avenue School right here. Okay, here we go, buddy. We're going to hold on for the school. Thank you. You want to say, give them a big hand, everybody. Welcome, Victoria Avenue School. Good job. Thank you. Good to see you. The great thing about school, how many like to eat?
I also want to recognize a special guest we have here today, Mona Field, who is from our Community College Board of Trustees and a good friend of many of us around here, has a delegation here from China, from the South China University of Technology in Guangzhou. And Mr. Labange, I know that you are very active in the Sister City Association, but want to recognize our guests from Guangzhou, our sister city, and ask them to come forward. And I'd like to recognize our guest, Community College trustee, Mona Field. So please welcome our guests from China.
Thank you so much, President Garcetti and members of the council. This is sort of an extra thing for me to assist at UCLA Extension occasionally, and UCLA, as you know, is working to create links with people all over the world. We're so pleased that the visitors are here from the university, the South China University of Technology. Many of them, by the way, are government officials dealing with matters similar to those which you deal with here at council.
Ming-Jing?
Just say
Ming-Jing.
thank you.
Thank you for giving all of us such an opportunity to learn more about Los Angeles.
Oh, thank you very much, Shay Shay. Let's hear it for Guangzhou and the Pearl River, and the beautiful Pearl River that runs through the heart of Guangzhou. And the Mona Fields, thank you in the Community College District. The most underrated part of our educational system is our community colleges, and they do a great job. Give Mona Fields and everybody a big hand for their work in the community colleges.
Thank you. We now have a quorum. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Cardenas, Gruel, Han, Weezer, Labange, Padilla, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
First order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Padilla moves and Mr. Smith seconds. If there's no objection, that's a unanimous vote, and those are approved.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Ms. Perry moves and Mr. Wesson seconds. If nobody objects, that too is a unanimous vote, and those are approved.
Mr. President, now would be time for comments from the public on items not on council's agenda.
Okay. Now we have time for our regular public comment for items that are not agendized but are nevertheless under our jurisdiction. I'd like to invite Soche Lujan forward to be our first speaker, be followed by Matt Dowd. Ms. Lujan? Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Unfortunately, I don't see Mr. Rosenthal here. I was going to actually address him today. I'd just like to let him know that we applaud his words and the passion with which he expressed them at the pro-immigrant rally on Monday of this week. Though this council, he's new to this council, he has shown an admirable sense of fairness and wisdom to look beyond the letter of the laws to their spirit. And here comes Mr. Rosenthal right now. Can I just hold my time really quickly so that he can
I'm sorry,
actually
if you can
come
just
over?
continue, please.
Thank you. I'm addressing you right now, Mr. Rosenthal, so if you don't mind, I'm good, thank you. Okay. You have mentioned proudly that you have come from immigrant stock, as many of the South Central farmers and their supporters. It is this pride in our ancestry that has driven us to persist in exercising our constitutional rights to redress and to freedom of speech before this council for the past 3 years. During that time, we have exposed less than transparent government, sweetheart deals, and have withstood media hit pieces and political attacks. But we have persisted. Let there be no doubt we will prevail. This is a great time to be of immigrant origin in Los Angeles. We are building the civil rights movement of the 21st century. As we struggle to demand our human rights, we are also challenging the federal government to practice what it preaches about fairness and democracy. We are challenging the whole lot of them, Democrats and Republicans alike, to knock off their talk of criminalizing immigrants and of exporting democracy using first strikes and shock and awe blitzkriegs. We are challenging them to develop real immigration reform and not racist stopgaps like building walls around our borders. I address these words to you, Mr. Rosenthal, because you seem to get it. In fact, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your sincere interest in visiting the South Central Farm at 41st and Alameda. Please invite your colleagues on the council, since none of them have accepted prior invitations from us. But please remember, past threats of destruction of the farm by the developer have forced us to establish watches and patrols most days
you.
and nights. For
you,
that
Mr. Hahn.
reason, visiting hours are at the present are by appointment or on Sundays between 8 and 5 p.m.
Thank you, Ms.
We
Hahn.
look forward
If I
to
can ask
seeing
to
you and
conclude.
hopefully your
Our
colleagues
next
at the
speaker
South
is
Central
Matt
Farm.
Dowd.
Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Dowd?
Hello, my name's Matt Dowd. I'm from Venice Beach. I'm here as a performer today. I've been here before as a vendor. I'm still waiting for a call from anybody, and that's anybody, because I had a stake at Venice Beach as a vendor and as a performer. Matt Dowd, that's my CD. MattDowd.com has all my music up there. It's blues rock. It hurts your fingers to play that stuff all day long, and that's what they expect me to do. They expect me to go down there at 8:30 on a Tuesday morning to get a space, if it, rain, hail, or shine. I went to Van Nuys as my alter ego, Matthew Dowd, the incense guy, wearing a suit and a tie, and I mentioned that I went to Van Nuys, the remote location, because I didn't want to get harassed. Sure enough, the minute I get off the podium, 3 police start harassing me. I'm wearing a suit and a tie. So I thought I'd come back downtown to be with you all, because at least, I got some friendly police here now to keep an eye on me. And I think this might be the appropriate time to suggest to Councilman Wesson that I'm against Zuma Dog doing any kind of music with that Sunset Harry Brown guy, or whatever his name is. Because the only lyrics I ever heard from him was, "I love cops," and "shut up, just shut up." And I don't think those lyrics are really going to sell on a Zuma Dog CD. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize next Michael Hunt to speak.
Thank you, City Council, and for listening to me. First of all, Bill Rosenthal, the permits are not legit, so you must acquit. I want to tell you that it's been examined by a contractor too. You should look at the permits that they're selling to the people. The second thing I'd like to talk about is 1,235 permits that was fraudulently sold to the city of Venice. They're saying that you can vend. The permits are fraudulent. The third thing I'd like to talk about is the homeless people. Bill, you did a good job with the homeless people voting no, because I watched Rocky Delgado. That should be his new election. Rocky Delgado, because he doesn't make a lot of sense with the homeless. Why would you arrest the homeless people? So I give you big props on the voting no on the homeless ordinance. It's just a waste of people's money, time, and everything. Crack dealers are not sleeping outside. They're sleeping in hotels. That's why they're selling crack. So he just lost my vote. But the ordinance still needs to be fixed. The 4215 still needs to be fixed. We got a lot of work. We got a lot to do with it. And I say we as a team, because I think that a lot of people been misled about what's really going on with that 4215 and the constitutional rights that the rights of Americans and American citizens have regarding their First Amendment issue. It's just like Special Prop 40 It doesn't supersede the federal law, and that's what we have here. If you think I'm not watching, and if you think I'm not listening to what's going on every day in City Council, I really am. Bill, we need to form some kind of coalition and work together and get all of this stuff corrected in a proper and fashionable manner. My name is Michael Hunt. I love all of you guys. Peace and blessings.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hunt. Next speaker is Zuma Dog.
Yeah, it's the gangster you love to hate. Zuma Dog, public enemy number one, the plaintiff. I'm here to talk. I got a great idea. I'd like to make it an agenda item. Now, I'm a citizen of the United States, and I got some things I'd like to talk about to City Council. I say we should make some type of law where you're allowed to speak publicly and say what you want without fear of being censored. Oh, we already got that. It's called the First Amendment, y'all. How come every time I come to City Hall, I get my First Amendments violated? I was at Van Nuys. Eric, I'd like an extra 30 seconds today, because yesterday y'all saw me on the TV screens from Van Nuys looking like Ted Koppel. I had the monitor walk up to me. He goes, "They're going to cut you off." And I go, "Why is my time up?" He goes, "Yeah, mm-hmm." Then I walked off. On the playback last night, I said, "You said I had 33 seconds. How come you got the monitor telling Zuma Dog to stop 33 seconds early?" I'll tell you why. He didn't like what I had to say, y'all. But that's what the First Amendment's for. You don't have to like what a person looks like or represents. It's a freedom of speech. Now, aside from all these civil violations you'll all be seeing, and what's up with that? Hey, Bill, excuse me, Mr. Rosendahl. Mr. Rosendahl, did you hear that they lost? We're sitting here every day talking about these false contracts that they made us sign. They put new contracts in front of us, even though the old ones were still valid, and we signed them. And so yesterday they put a new contract in front of me, and I said, "What happened to the old one?" He said, "Oh, we lost them all. You got to re-sign it, or else you can't participate in the lottery." That's my source of income. And it was a 7-page document. I'm not Johnny Cochran, y'all. I can't read a 7-page document in 3 minutes. So what happened to the contracts? And how do I know they didn't change the contract when they put, "Oh, we lost the old ones"? How convenient. They lost the old contracts. Just sign this new one. We promise it's the exact same. Zuma Dog don't buy that, y'all. We were at the Cochran firm yesterday looking about all this. Anyway, and I saw John Brady at a Venice thing over the weekend. I said, "Are you going to overturn that?" He's like, "No, City Council voted on it. The mayor supports it. We're not going to overturn it." I go, "What about the federal mandate that supersedes the local?" He says, "Well, if that's the way you feel, then just sue the city, y'all." And he was screaming at me, "Why'd you got John Brady telling me to sue the city, y'all? Zuma Dog, hooty-hoo! Wednesday, tonight, public access, you feel me? I'm not happy at all, y'all."
Thank you very much, Mr. Dog. Our next speaker is Michael Carrion. And thank you for letting us know. We're working on the monitor situation in Van Nuys. Our apologies about that, Mr. Carrion.
Can you get it quiet in here, please? You do when everybody else is speaking. Quiet, please.
Go ahead, Mr. Carrion.
Okay.
There's people who are going out right now, who are visitors from another country. Please continue.
I'd like to speak to Ms. Gruhl. Ms. Gruhl, you were talking about raising the price of parking tickets, just like the mayor is. I just like to make sure that you got something clear. The law should be across the board. Just because you're a city or county or state employee and you're driving a city or county or state vehicle that has an E-plate or California exemption should not mean that you don't get tickets. Your employees are taking your city vehicles and parking in the red, parking in hydrants, parking everywhere, and parking enforcement, since they're brothers working for the city, don't cite them. I fought with them for 2 years. For 6 months, they gave them yellow, "Please don't park here" tickets. Not a citation, a notice, "Please don't park here." If you're going to raise the price, then cite everybody. In the parking tickets, it does not state if you're driving an E-plate, you're exempt from parking in the red. As a matter of fact, you have a pamphlet that states where you can and where you cannot park. The only exemption you have is from meters. Talk to the parking enforcement and make sure that everybody gets cited equally. It is not fair that you cite the taxpayers of the city and not the employees of the city. You only have to go outside right across the street from the mall, and there are government cars parked all over the street in the red and in the hydrants, and they work there. You cannot park within a block from your employment. They do it anyway without being cited. If you're going to raise the price, do it evenly across the board. And Mr. President, every time I see this on TV and somebody that's in your favor or somebody else has somebody speaking, you stop this clock. And then you let them speak on and on and on over their 2 minutes. I think that's unfair. I don't think it's right, and I think you guys should keep the clock for everybody
equally.
Thank you, Mr. Carrillo, and we let people finish their last thoughts, which is the rule that we do. Mr. Bruce Darien is the next speaker out in Van Nuys. If we can go to our remote facility. Welcome, Mr. Darien.
Morning, City Council. My name is Bruce Darien. I have a model that I built about 9 years ago of a cross-section of the Malibu Pier. I know the council feels possibly that it might not have jurisdiction over the Malibu Pier, but there are many issues that are collateral to the pier that affect the city of Los Angeles, and certainly the taxpayers of Los Angeles are affected by what's gone on the state historic project. I want to take this one single issue this morning and show how the depth of the pilings that were presented by the contractors, DCA Drilling and Construction and Superior Gunite, have been falsified so that they were able to collect more money of the taxpayers' money by fraudulent pile driving logs. In other words, the lengths of the pilings that were submitted to the Department of Parks and Recreation are not true and correct so that they could steal the taxpayers' money. And I have this section of the pier that I built and presented to the Malibu Optimist Club in an effort to get the construction started 9 years ago. And I think the taxpayers of the state, the county, and the city need to be well aware of a tremendous amount of fraudulent conduct that's gone on at Malibu Pier, and also the illegal discharging that's going on at the Los Angeles River as we speak. There'll be more that I'll bring in future weeks on the fraudulent conduct, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak before the council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Darien. That closes our public comment for today, our general public comment. If we can go through the agenda, Mr. Clerk.
On the regular agenda, item 1 is a street lighting district item in Council Districts 9 and 14, notice for public hearing.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing on that. And is that for a vote or just to continue the public hearing?
No, it is for a vote, Mr. President.
Excuse me?
It is for a vote.
Okay, if we can, anybody wishing to be heard on one? If not, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next items, please.
Items 2 through 29 are items for which public hearings have been held. Item 2 is a commission appointment. Do you wish to hold that on the desk?
Yes, let's hold 2 on the desk, please.
That would leave council items 3 through 29.
Colleagues, the specials from 3 onwards. Mr. Cardenas?
Item number 12.
Number 12, Mr. Cardenas. I know Mr. Parks wanted to have 15 special, so let's call that Ms. Hahn.
21.
21 for Ms. Hahn.
We're good.
Other specials, colleagues? If we can move on 29A, if we can move that. Any other specials, colleagues? Seeing none, let's prepare the roll on the balance and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Items 30 through 55 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, colleagues, any specials 30 to 55? And I believe we have cards for 38. Let's call that special. And we have a card for 43 as well. So any other specials, colleagues? Yes,
Number
Mr.
52. 52 special, thank you.
Got that, Mr. Labange, thank you. Other specials, colleagues? Seeing none, can we prepare the roll on the balance and tabulate the vote?
Twelve ayes.
Those are approved as well. If we can send 49 forthwith, please, and 42 forthwith. If there's no objection to either of those will be sent forthwith. Next items, please.
On the continuation agenda, item 56 is an item for which public hearing has been held. This matter was continued from yesterday's meeting.
Let's move the budget and finance report on that. And unless anybody wishes to call it special, Mr. Reyes?
Yeah, I apologize. If we can reconsider 55 to call special.
Okay, come back to that one in just
Appreciate
a second.
that. Thank you.
If there's nobody else who wishes to call 56 special, we move the budget and finance report on that. If we can open the roll on 56, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved as well. Now let's reconsider 55, please, if there's no objection. Anybody wish to be heard on the reconsideration? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
And we will call that special for Mr. Reyes. I'd like to recognize Mr. Huizar. I know we have some special guests that are visiting us from Mexico. and like to
Thank you very much,
recognize
Mr. President, and I know today is not the appropriate day to do a full presentation, but I did want to acknowledge some visitors that we have with us from the federal government in Mexico who came to visit the marches we had here this weekend. And it's great to be here as they learn about Zuma Dog and other things that happen in this city council. Les quería dar una bienvenida a nuestros visitantes de México. Yo como alguien que nació en Zacatecas, México, me da mucho orgullo al ver los visitantes que tenemos aquí en este concilio a hablar sobre los asuntos que tenemos. Y gracias por venir este fin de semana a ver lo que estamos haciendo para defender los derechos de los inmigrantes en este país. Cuando los nombro, si por favor se pueden parar. With us today we have the diputada federal and vicecoordinadora del área de migrantes del grupo parlamentario del PRI, Laura Martínez Rivera. Diputado federal Alberto Aguilar Iñárritu. A diputado federal is equivalent to our House of Representatives here in the United States. Diputado federal Omar Bazán Flores. Diputado federal licenciado Rogelio Flores Mejía, State of Puebla. Licenciado Armando López Romero. Muchísimas gracias por estar aquí. Y bienvenido.
Bienvenidos a Los Ángeles and Concejal Reyes, Councilmember Reyes.
I just also want to thank my colleague, Councilman Huizar, for introducing our guests. In this day and age, when we talk about immigration, impact on people as communities, as neighbors, it behooves us to learn from each other. So I'm very, very glad you're here to see how this city functions, the municipal environment, and hopefully we can have some sharing of knowledge as we improve our relationships and improve the quality of life of all folks in this city and indeed in this hemisphere. Muchas gracias, bienvenidos por estando aquí con nosotros. Compartiendo estas experiencias nos ayuda a mejorar nuestras relaciones, mejorar el ambiente de nuestras comunidades y seguir adelante como una comunidad en esta parte de este mundo. Muchas gracias por estar con nosotros. Bienvenidos.
Thank you very much for those recognitions. If we can now take up item 2, our commissioner, oh wait, excuse me, if we can hear from...
Thank you very much for your kind attention. We are very well impressed of your democratic demonstrations in the last weekend, and thank you very much for your words. Muchas gracias a todos ustedes, muy amables por sus palabras, y para nosotros también estar aquí es aprender y comparar otras experiencias en beneficio de la relación común. Gracias.
Thank you very much.
Queremos agradecer esta bienvenida que nos permite acercarnos a este gran pueblo norteamericano. Estamos contentos de haber estado en estos actos históricos, en los eventos históricos. Agradezco al señor Garcetti su amabilidad, a Ed Reyes y al resto de los concejales. Les traemos un saludo del Congreso Mexicano, de la Cámara de Diputados. Yo soy la diputada Laura Martínez Rivera del Estado norteño de Coahuila y hacerles un agradecimiento y un saludo del pueblo mexicano. Gracias.
Gracias. Okay. Anybody else? Thank you very much, and welcome again. We appreciate your presence. If we can take up item number 2 now, Mr. Clerk, our Commissioner nominee.
Yeah, item 2 is the appointment of Mr. Evangelos Ambatilos to the Board of Building and Safety Commissioners.
I can ask you to come forward, sir. We want to thank you very much for putting yourself forward for public service. Yes, please, right here at the table. I believe this went through your committee, Mr. Weiss? Is a Building Safety Commissioner?
This is actually through the Plum Committee.
Oh, through Plum Committee, excuse me. So Mr. Reyes, we'd like to recognize our Commissioner for our Building and Safety Commission.
Yes, first I want to thank you for joining us and with our city family. I do know that Mr. Ambatielos has worked diligently with the city in the past. If you've ever gone by during Christmas season, the great Christmas trees that we have off of Alameda, well, this is the gentleman that allows us that opportunity to share those great memories with our kids in the Christmas season, with the trees up in the altars of the churches, nonprofits, and of course, enhancing that type of spirit throughout the city. But it's just a small portion of what he has done for the city, and I want to thank him for his corporate citizenry, his work in the academic world, and as a businessman. With that, sir, would you like to share with us your vision in this role in this particular body?
Well, first of all, thank you very, very much for those kind words. Just briefly, I was born and raised in Manhattan Beach, a product of public education, graduated undergraduate USC, graduate school USC, taught at Palos Verdes High School in Palos Verdes for 15 years, foreign language department chairman. In the last 25 years, I've been a businessman in Los Angeles. And I just look forward to trying to give back to this great city as much as I can. Hopefully, well, the department is very, very user-friendly. I hope to enhance that and to bring a humanistic approach to the department.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Thank you, Mr. Amatilos. And I'd like to recognize Mr. Tom Labange to say a couple words as well. Mr. Labange? Hold on one moment. Mr. Labange, over here on the other side.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Members of the council, we have someone here who's very passionate about Los Angeles and very passionate about business. I'm proud of the family that he's from. I'm proud of the family that he's worked with in the produce district. You were great friends of John Ferraro, and your father-in-law, the great Ernie Zaffris, truly was a great titan in this city and developing this city and its produce. I think the practical experience that you have will certainly help the Building and Safety Department under the direction of Mr. Edelman to help and assist, as well as the executive assistant from Building and Safety, which is so important to have that teamwork that is there. Because I think it turns it around and makes people believe that we can make properties safe. Housing is so important, as mentioned, and making sure some of the old housing is brought up to code so it doesn't become a safety challenge, but also when there's new development to make sure it's fair for the community that exists in the area, as well as fair for those who want to see the improvements made to the property. Do you have anything you'd like to add at all? And
Nothing, Tom. Thank you very
Van,
much.
thank you very much. I just want to say 1, 2, 3 on this is your teamwork effort and his great knowledge of the city, Mr. President. This gentleman has great knowledge of the city and is a wonderful man, so I'm so proud that Mayor Villaraigosa selected such an outstanding citizen to represent the commission as a commissioner for building and safety. Thank you, Van.
Thank you, Mr. Labange and Mr. Ambatielos and your family. I think it's come time for your vote, so let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Unanimous vote. Congratulations, Commissioner.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. Round of applause for our new commissioner, please. Next item, please. Thank you, Tom.
Item 12 is called special by Councilmember Cardenas.
Item number 12, Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you very much. Do we have any staff, either CLA, CAO staff, here for this item number 12?
Yes, we have CLA.
Regarding the Community Redevelopment Agency or anybody from that office?
Our
I have
CLA is
some
coming forward.
Basic, broad questions about this matter before us.
Excuse me, Mr. President, we should have Cal Hollis here. Is Cal here? Okay, because Cal should come up to the table, too.
Thank you. Did you have any questions, Ms. Perry?
No, I just want to make sure, because
Thank
Cal's really the one who...
Thank you very much. I'd like to clarify before I get into my questions that I'd like to ask of you. My questions don't have to do with the end result, the bigger, broader issues of this particular potential project that is billions and billions of dollars into the future. My questions have to do with the bond process, the selection process of who we as a city do business with and how we select them. So my first question is, this particular firm that is getting this contract, or the proposal, is Fulbright and Jaworski. How was Fulbright and Jaworski selected? What was the selection process?
Mr. President, Paul Smith, CLA. Council member, the city attorney goes through a solicitation process where the outside counsel necessary for the CRA is bidded. They bid for that. There's a proposal set. There's a pool of candidates that are reviewed. That pool then comes back. There's a selection of different types of counsel necessary, including bond counsel. From that selected and approved pool, the agency did a request for qualifications for 3 in that pre-approved pool. They looked at those candidates and then selected the firm that was before you today.
Okay. Now, this makeup of that pool, that's done on a generic basis, or that was done specifically for this project?
On a generic basis. It was for the needs of the CRA for outside counsel, looking at various types of skills that may be necessary.
So basically, we have a pool of qualified, approved bond counsel for these kinds of matters for the City of Los Angeles, and that was done, be it months ago or a couple of years ago, and that's refreshed every so often, correct?
That solicitation, I believe, was done relatively recently, and I think there is a 3-year life on that pool.
Okay, so basically, this is just as much for the edification of the public who's watching, and also for myself and anybody else who wants to know these details. So therefore, this particular bond counsel was picked out of a pool. In that process that happened most recently, that will have this group of bond counsel firms for about a 3-year period to be selected for specific items like this one. Now, that they are selected via a process where we put out an RFP, or we put out a call for these kinds of businesses. And in that process, who handles that? Is it the city attorney's office?
Yes, this is in keeping with the city charter, the responsibilities for selection of outside counsel for the CRA essentially lies with the city attorney. It is their responsibility, and their approval process, subject to approval by the city council, of course, of these various types of outside legal services. So when this pool, they go out and they solicit bids from these various law firms, then they come back to the council and the committee with a selected pool, and that pool is approved. If the CRA needs individual outside legal services, they go to that pool, look at the entities on that pool, find ones that have the skills that match, and then they go out for another RFQ to get a response from those firms, and then they select from that smaller group.
So it appears that we feel comfortable and confident that that call out for those firms was robust, and we got enough qualified firms to choose from, and then we narrowed it down to what the syndicate group is, correct?
Yes, I am confident that the outreach, the agency from time to time, and it's been the concern of this council from time to time, that outreach be comprehensive. It reach all the entities that we can. The outreach is a broad outreach. As you know, in committee, we keep asking these questions. We make sure that they have a net that is large enough and big enough to accommodate what your concerns are.
Okay. Mr. President, my time on the future questions.
Okay.
Now, is it our understanding in this city that if we're going to put out a call out to do business, call it an RP, whatever process, and specifically in this case, is it our understanding in this city that we can actually put extra energy in trying to get local firms, attract local firms to apply, attract minority and women-owned firms to apply? That does not violate Proposition 209, correct? Proposition 209 kicks in when it comes to actually selecting who we do business with, correct?
No, I think the outreach is a broad net, a broad solicitation for, especially with a bond counsel and participation from a whole range of entities to provide that legal service, not only to the city but to the CRA.
Okay. Now, my question is specifically on this particular contract with Fulbright and Jaworski. And I'm reading that it's going to be $160,000 plus expenses. So basically, we're looking at a contract that roundabout is about $160,000 and change, basically. Now, on this kind of activity with the city, are we, in past practice, when we hire bond counsel, does that bond counsel tend to get it, either call it extensions or additional work or what have you, that in these kinds of transactions with these kinds of firms, that they could end up maybe making $200,000, $120,000, I mean $300,000, $400,000 if the process continues and it gets longer? Or do we go back out to find out who's going to be the bond counsel on the second or third phase on a long-term transaction? My time, please.
My understanding, Mr. President, is that these contracts are reviewed from time to time by the city attorneys to make sure that that entity, that law firm that we have, is producing in a way that is consistent with what we want and the products that we want. It is possible that because they are doing a good job and the project itself demands increased legal services, that could happen. In this particular case, the $160,000 comes from the bond proceeds. However, if there is also another fee schedule if it takes longer than anticipated, but it's all coming out of bond fees.
Okay, so
bond proceeds.
Basically, the compensation to this firm, if their work gets drawn out or we ask above and beyond and longer term requests of them for this work, they could, in fact, actually get extensions per se on their activity.
They
and
could,
compensation.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, that answers my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas. Ms. Perry, did you wish to be heard? Or?
No.
Okay. Anybody else wishing to be heard? If not, let's open the roll on this item, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved, and if we can send that forthwith, and number 2 forthwith as well, our Commissioner. Next, we have item number 15, Mr. Parks, that we held on the desk for you, number 15. Mr. Parks? We have number 15, I think, which you wanted to speak on.
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is an item, and maybe we have the city staff here, and I was hopeful Mr. Zine would be here today because this is an item that we took jurisdiction over because of a concern about the RFP on deferred comp. And now it's coming back, but it appears from the committee report, we're authorizing Personnel Department to execute a 5-year contract before we even know, what I understand, who has won the RFP, and that, is that correct? Okay, tell me what's correct then.
This would actually be a recommendation to extend.
Speak up.
I'm sorry. This would actually be a recommendation to extend the current contract with Great West, which would give us enough time to complete the RFP process.
Okay.
So once we complete the RFP process, then whatever vendor we would at that point would need to contract with, then we would need the 5-year contract for that term.
Okay. The concern I have is that I understand we're extending it while we go to the RFP, but what I don't understand is why we don't have it come back to council with the RFP and your recommendations before we execute a new 5-year contract. Being that we took jurisdiction and caused you to go through this process, it would appear that we'd want to know what the outcome of the
Well,
process.
actually, for this report, the recommendation for the 5-year contract has to do with the pension savings plan, which is the retirement program for part-time temporary
Sir, I can't hear
workers.
you.
I'm sorry, the pension savings plan.
Mm-hmm.
The 5-year contract recommendation is for that program, not the deferred compensation plan. The pension savings plan, that contract currently is within the first year of a 5-year contract. There is the potential that we could contract with one vendor to administer both programs, which is currently the case.
Okay.
So because we have put both programs into the RFP, there is one potential outcome of the RFP process is that we might want to enter into a new contract with one vendor to administer both programs, and in that case, we would like the ability to be able to put both of the contracts onto the same track.
Okay. The concern I have is that even more so now, if you're saying, because the title is we're talking about deferred comp, and then if we're going to merge the other program pension saving plan, and we're now merging them in the RFP, that's what my concern is, that the recommendation 3 says go forward on that, and if you are going to go forward and it's the same vendor, we don't get an opportunity to determine what you're going to do on deferred comp. So that's what I'm concerned about, is that it would appear that this would be coming back to council if you have that expectation that the same vendor might end up doing both contracts.
Okay. Well, I believe we had previous authority from council for the 5-year contract on the deferred compensation plan. So we already have
Okay,
that.
we did do that, but
Right.
the issue is we're now merging it with deferred comp, which I don't think was the judgment of the council when we made that first 5-year recommendation.
Well, in the past, we have, on the pension savings plan, we have come to council to obtain the authority for the 5-year contract. So basically, we're asking for that again. Okay. If what happened was that we entered into a new contract with one vendor that would be the provider for both programs.
Okay. Thank you. Let me just say this, colleagues, we gave approval a while back to go forward on the pension saving plan, which I don't disagree with, and that was the 5-year plan. What complicates it is that now if we're going to go out with a joint RFP for both deferred comp and this, it now seems that we are merging two issues together, in which one issue was of concern enough to the council, Prop 42, to bring it in and cause a new RFP. So I would suspect we'd want to see the outcome of that. And if the RFP is covering both of them and you're inclined to make that decision, it shouldn't be made without the council review. So I don't know if that ties up the pension plan information. If you go forward on that 5 years, and if that same contractor is going to do deferred comp, does that tie it up if we separate those two?
No, I mean, I think our intention was certainly to report back to Personnel Committee on what the action of the board was with respect to the deferred compensation plan. So that information would go back to Personnel Committee and then back to council.
When you say report back, what would that entail? Would that entail you coming and saying these are our recommendations and the council approves them? Or are you going to tell us what you've retrospectively have done?
Right now, under the administrative code, the board has contracting authority for the program. So they can enter into a contract with, and so they would not need to come back to council.
I know the dilemma is the reason you're in council is the council didn't like what you did before. Is that right?
Right,
Okay.
right.
So what I'm saying is if you now are acting on the direction of council, I would suspect you'd want to bring it back so we can see the end result of it, being that we caused you to go back and do another RFP. So that's what I'm asking. If we separate that issue, does it impact the pension plan that we've already agreed on? Can they go separately?
Well, I think our goal is we would like to put both contracts onto the same, if there is going to be a new contract for pension savings plan, we'd like to put it onto the same track.
Okay, so the RFP is going to come back at the same time for both of them. It's joint.
Right, the responses will come back at the same time for both.
All right. So how do we get to the point of the council being able to see what the recommendations are on deferred comp before you execute that contract?
Well, I guess the only way I can respond to that is I believe that under the administrative code, the board...
I know what the administrative
Right.
code says, but realize why you're here today is that the council changed the actions of the committee
Right.
and asked you to do it again, so I would assume we'd have an interest in what the outcome was.
Right. Well, as I said, the intent was to report back to council. I don't believe that the intent of the board was to go back before making a decision about the contractor to come back to the council to basically to ask or to tell them that they are recommending that a particular contractor be chosen. So that's my understanding of what the plan is.
Colleagues, I'd ask that, colleagues, I'm going to ask you to do something. Item, recommendation number 3, I would recommend we amend that and say basically that before the execution of the RFP, that it comes back to council for review for the deferred comp, and also, being that they're tied together, the same time we would get the pension saving plan as a package to come back to council before you execute the contract. And so I'd ask for an amendment to this report for item 3, that both of those items come to council before you execute that 5-year contract.
Is there any objection to that amendment? If not, that will be accepted as a friendly amendment to the report. Okay, anybody else wishing to be heard on this item? Let's open the roll then. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item 21 was called special by Councilmember Hahn.
Ms. Hahn, item number 21.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, what we have before us today in item 21 reflects a lot of hard work and vision and forethought by a lot of stakeholders to improve the Century Corridor. That's from the airport basically to the 405 freeway. That is really the entryway, the gateway to Los Angeles. It's really sometimes the first place visitors who come from all over this world come to. The hotel workers are Los Angeles' face of hospitality for people to come. And our colleague, Councilman Rosendahl, introduced a motion for us to study the possibility of a conference center coming to this area. Now, we know we have the convention center here, but there's a thought that maybe we could completely revitalize that corridor by building a smaller conference center so that it would really attract more people would stay in those hotels. It would be an alternative to the convention center here in downtown Los Angeles. This item has been heard in my committee, Trade, Commerce, and Tourism. It's the perfect item to be heard in that committee because it is about commerce, it is about trade, but it's really about tourism. And we have spent a lot of time looking and learning about the working conditions of the men and women who are employed by the various hotels along this corridor. And we've learned some things that, for me personally, were very disturbing. We've heard stories of bad pay, a lack of benefits, intimidation, retaliation, and we've heard about blanket firing of some of these employees when a change of ownership took place at the hotels. We've also heard something that was very disturbing to me, and I think it would come as a surprise to most of us, that many times when people book a banquet at one of the hotels, and who's ever booking that banquet, a nonprofit, a charity, or a business, you always add on there the gratuity. They just put that on there as 20% of the total amount that you're going to pay to rent that hotel for the evening. We found out from the hotel workers and from the men and women, the wait staff who serve those banquets, many times they do not get that gratuity. That gratuity or service goes back to the hotel, and many times they get, if they're lucky, maybe 8% of the bill. But some of them reported not receiving anything, which I think was a huge shock. Most of us feel like we're being good citizens, we're paying the tip or the gratuity, and we're assuming that goes to the hard men and women who are waiting in on us and serving on us, and that was not the case. After we heard a lot of testimony in our committee, our CLA came up with a list of recommendations for addressing the working conditions, addressing the infrastructure of the corridor, addressing the idea of this conference center being along that corridor. And I will tell you, I was very proud of our CLA. They came back with great recommendations. So what we're doing today, hopefully I'll get your support to just move forward and get these reports back so that we can look at them as City Council and see what we can or cannot do to improve the Century Corridor for a long time. LA Inc. will come back and they'll give us a report about a study to establish a conference center along Century Corridor. The city attorney will present the feasibility of an ordinance requiring hotels in the geographic vicinity of LAX to pay the city's living wage to its workers. The city attorney will present an ordinance requiring hotel and restaurant owners to state in writing where the service charge or gratuity goes, a disclosure so that everyone paying that amount will know whether or not that goes to the servers or does that go back to the hotel. The city attorney will present the feasibility of an ordinance requiring worker retention at LAX hotels during a change in ownership, similar to the one that we passed with grocery stores. The city attorney will present a plan on addressing the complaints of hotel workers on the issues of intimidation and retaliation by hotel management. The CLA will report back on any state or federal bills which would expand basic health coverage to hotel workers. And if no legislation exists, work with us to find a legislator that would consider sponsoring that type of bill. We heard that based on their minimum wage, lack of getting tips, it's very difficult for these hotel workers to take care of their families, particularly with health benefits. And CDD has been asked to report back on work-source hiring programs and other job training available to these workers. And finally, we've asked LAWA to request to communicate to the FAA regarding the possible use of airport revenue to repair city streets which has been damaged as a result of the airport traffic, similar to what we did in the port, where we've got the Port of Los Angeles to pave about 9 miles a year of city streets because they have been damaged just by port operations and by the heavy traffic that exists in that part of town that exists nowhere else. And as you know, we all divide our street repair dollars by 15, and sometimes that's unfair, particularly probably to Bill Rosendahl, who takes the majority of the brunt of traffic, cargo traffic, passenger traffic, in and out of the streets by the airport. So we think that's important. Colleagues, I want to tell you that our colleague Bill Rosendahl has done a stellar job on this. He's really been working with the hotel owners. He was working with the Gateway bid to really talk about revitalizing that corridor, building a conference center. But we've also taken up the plight of the workers who work in those hotels. But let's move forward. The first thing I would like to agendize in all of these reports is the feasibility of us building a conference center in that corridor, because I think that will rise everybody up together and will really help the business owners and the hotel workers in that corridor. Thank you, Bill, for your leadership. This is a project I think will enhance not only that part of Los Angeles, but really all of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reyes, next speaker.
Yes. No, I just want to rise and thank my colleagues and their leadership. I think what's most profound here, this is not an effort of us and them. This is an effort of how we together create an environment where everyone rises together. The conference center is an excellent, I believe, strategy. With more visitors, more revenue for the hotel owners, which means more revenues, more benefits for the workers. But as a city, we have the capacity to change the land use, to change the circulation, to create a sense of place for this new facility, a facility that can again create the kind of benefits that addresses everyone's concerns. So I want to thank my colleagues, Councilmember Hahn, Councilor Rosendahl, and also the unions and the owners for allowing for this dialogue to occur. I do know that when I went to one of the hotels, the managers did invite us in. It got a little contentious right at the beginning, but then the managers came out along with the workers and allowed us to tour through the facility, got to speak to the workers in all the different crevices and corners of these hotels. It's amazing how much activity occurs behind the scenes. But let's understand that we have the discretion to create an environment that benefits everyone. It doesn't have to be us versus them. This could be something where we all win together. So thank you for that leadership, and thank you for allowing us to understand in a much clearer fashion what are the important variables and how we move a strategy that benefits all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reyes. Mr. Rosendahl is our next speaker.
Good morning, Mr. President. I just want to thank Janice Hahn for her incredible leadership on so many issues on this council. And I want to thank Ed Reyes, my colleague right next to me here, for what he just said. Colleagues, obviously we want your support for this. There's many ways of dealing with issues in the city, and this is a comprehensive approach to a major problem impacting my district. We have Century Boulevard there, where the city gets more bed tax than any other area in the city, and yet it's underappreciated by us historically. Well, we're changing that dynamic right now. We're having a study done on a conference center. This conference center, which I know makes sense, but we'll see the process and how that does, will give the street a destination purpose other than just transferring to get on planes and going somewhere else. Right now, the Century Corridor hotels are the cheapest hotels in the city. Downtown is 20% more, and on my other areas in my district on the west side, it's 30% more. Well, they need to be able to raise the rent, so to speak, of the people coming through who are the customers of those hotels. They need to do that. But to do that, we need a conference center. We need a beautification program. We need more support to make it a destination location. We don't all have to come downtown for meetings, you know. And in our gridlock in this city right now, if we can avoid going downtown at some times, it's a good thing. And if we can create shops and restaurants and other things along the Century Corridor, we will be giving it a facelift that is critical to the beauty of that area. By doing that, all ships rise, meaning the workers, which are underappreciated due to the economics and due to politics, need to be appreciated. When Janice Hahn talked about the gratuity tax, we all thought that it was going to the workers, but only 8% is going to the workers. So on the one hand, we have to give business a boost, and at the same time, we have to give the workers a boost. And together, we're going to make that a more beautiful area. That's why I put that motion in. I thank President Garcetti for seconding it, and I thank the leadership of my chair of the committee that I'm on where this motion went through. Colleagues, please vote yes for this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosendahl. And Mr. Labange is our next speaker.
Thank you very much. It is so important when you talk about this part of the city, Mr. Rosendahl, as you mentioned, it is the gateway, and those were developed. I remember when they were developed with the conference centers there, because now, amazingly enough, a lot of people will fly into Los Angeles, and they won't go into central Los Angeles or any other part, but they'll go to a conference hotel there. And I think getting LA Inc. focused on that, which I know they're committed to that, is very important. And I appreciate how you articulated that. I also appreciate that it's important that we do try to improve the standard of living for people who work very hard every day in servicing the people who visit our city. So I rise to support this report and thank everyone for their efforts there. The only thing I ask, once we get through the whole system of dealing with the challenges of LAX, is that there be somewhere to have a short hop. You know, DASH stands for Downtown Area Short Hop. That's what DASH stands for. If there could be a short hop from LAX to Century Boulevard to Sepulveda, so people could go to those very nice shops that are there, or thumbs that be created, a short hop to Venice, just to engage, because some people have 3 to 6 hours of a layover. So thank you very much. But remember, Downtown Area Short Hop, so you can go LAX Short Hop. Figure out the acronym, Mr. Rosendahl. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. If we could please open the roll on this item, seeing no other people wishing to speak, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Thank you. That is approved. Our next items, sorry.
Item 11, sorry I didn't do it before.
Item 11, would you like to reconsider 11? I thought it was number 9. I was told. Number 9? Okay. We'll reconsider that and hold that on the desk for a second. Let's open the roll on reconsideration on 9. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, let's call that special, and we'll return to that in just a second, Mr. Rosendahl. Let's take up items 38 and 43 together. We have card from the public on each of those. Ms. Hawkins, if you'd like to come forward, we'll give you 4 minutes, so you get 2 minutes for each one. On items 38 and 43, you can comment on each one of those.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Eric Cassetti. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ms. Sylvia Hawkins. I would like to start on number 38 by saying no. If the rules and regulation is off, then the plan will not work. More than 10 rules and regulation is enough for any business plan. If you can get it down to 8 rules and regulations in any business, marriage, school, or travel plan of giving instructions out, no on any raise on hotel costs to the public people. You will not win all customers, public people, and dealings to be successful. We must, United States of America government, give all new information out to all public people and all businesses owners, so that all public people can remind all business owners of all new low-cost prices and not monthly discounts. This is worth the cost of gain. On number 43, we must again say no. I am convinced dealing with sodas and chemicals inside of soft drinks, that these sodas will still leave you with thirst that must be quenched. It is a fact that all you need is a cup a day of your own individual urine to keep you happy and not thirsty all day. Also, in using your own individual urine as eye drop and not going to the eye doctor to get a prescription. This way will cause you to see 20/20 in vision without glasses. It has already been known that these doctors' offices was using the holy people and virgin urine to put on the market for sale for customers to buy eye drop. And that is why the value of eye drop and medicine has gone down to 20%. All people are now using their urine instead of medication. Again, we must be very aware of what is healing us. Even though we're talking about hotel, we're talking about customers, we're talking about workers. And the health of workers is down, almost 65%. We are more in the need of working customers that are healthy and not sickly. So we are now in the need of no new vaccine for Tamiflu or for chicken flu that is now said to be on the rise or meant fly in California. All you have need of is to put on your urine, which is your pee, and now you will not be attacked. Thank you very much. My name is Sylvia Hawkins.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Appreciate your testimony. That closes our public comments for both of those items. If we can please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Those are approved as well. If we can go back to number 9 now, Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is there anybody here from the Ad Hoc Committee on Homelessness that could come forward? If they're not in the room at the moment or while they're coming into the room, the point of this is that our chair, myself, and we were at a meeting that brought the disturbing reality to both Jan Perry and myself about people being dumped on the edges of service setups by local hospitals. We had the staffer from the Southern California Hospital Association there, and both Jan and I looked him in the eye and said, this process cannot continue. There has to be a referral. A social worker should go to a person that's about to be discharged, especially a homeless person or an indigent person or a person that is having some psychiatric or other problems, and figure out a way in which that person can transition from a hospital bed to a community facility. This process will give us an opportunity to address this issue. I brought it out as special to let the public know that Jan Perry, myself, and other members of that ad hoc committee are looking very, very seriously at ways in which we can tie permanent housing with supportive services, where we can tie a hospital discharge with a location for that person to go. How dare a hospital dump somebody into a taxi cab, and then that taxi cab pulls up in front of Midnight Mission, and the person walks out still in a hospital garb, not knowing where they are or what to do. So I'm pleased to see that we're taking leadership in this city. This is also a county issue, and we know the county is in charge of health, and we're in charge of housing. So the two groups are working together. Our city attorney's office was also represented at the steps of the Midnight Mission when we talked about this issue. So this is just FYI, colleagues. We're going forward with the study. We want the public to know about it as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Mr. Weezer is our next speaker, to be followed by Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to stand up and talk about my support for this because it speaks to something that I'm really concerned about, and that is, and I support, which is the regionalization of our area services. And we know that recently the county gave $100 million for plans to have shelters in each of the county's 5 districts to serve as 24-hour drop-off points where hospitals, police, and care providers could take homeless people. And we know that dumping is simply a quick, irresponsible way to go about it. The county's plan, in conjunction with this, will go a long way towards not only dumping, but taking people where they live. Taking people and asking them, where did you come from, where do you want to go, where do you live, and how can we provide you those services that you need. To me, regionalization is a very important step the city can take going forward to clean up Skid Row, and I think this would help us and go in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I, too, want to stand and recognize the leadership of Ms. Perry and Mr. Rosendahl on this issue. And what an unfortunate experience, but thank goodness it was caught on tape. I saw, I think, in the last few days, the response from the Hospital Association. Most of it I was pleased with, their response. However, I still found in their response some kind of, well, there's only services in certain areas, and it really was not, I think, indicative of what I'd like to see as the commitment, and so I hope that we'll continue to push that and to develop some kind of agreement as we move forward, because it's not someone else's responsibility. It's all of our responsibility to deal with individuals who, through no fault of their own, are in a hospital and need a place to go. And as we've talked about, these individuals did not live on Skid Row. Most of them did not live on Skid Row. They lived somewhere else here in the city or county of Los Angeles. And so it may take more time and a little bit more money by these hospitals, but that's part of their responsibility too. So I was pleased to join you and also the President in signing in on that letter and look forward to working together on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl. Anybody else wishing to be heard on this? If not, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
All right, that is approved. Our next item is 52. Is that right, Mr. Clerk?
Item 52, called special by Councilmember Labange.
Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much. Members, I just know we could get unanimous support for this proposition that will be on the statewide ballot this June for the Library Construction Bond Act of 2006. And I know we have benefited from this. I think the Mid-Valley Regional Branch Library was used from an earlier bond proposition, and I know Councilmember Smith was instrumental in working that through as he worked for Mr. Burnson at the time. The Library Department is probably the most effective department if you do an analysis of how they help people, give them the information, the knowledge, and the power to understand, to read, to explore. So I just wanted to call the attention. I want to thank Mr. Smith for waving it out as committee, as he has been so involved with library improvements, as we all are. Our librarian, Fontaine Holmes, strongly supports this. I call for an aye vote, Mr. President. Aye vote for number 52.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Padilla?
Mr. Labange, I have a question.
Okay.
Just if the CLA or anybody's here to answer what's in it for LA. I think this is a good measure to support. I'm going to be a yes vote, but I'm just curious as to how this particular bond measure was structured when it was placed on the ballot, and if it creates a pool of dollars that are awarded on a competitive basis, if there's line items for cities, if money is being distributed on a per capita basis. Do we have those details?
I could answer that for you if you want it, if you believe me, but
I believe you.
You know, the city librarian made a great presentation at committee, and we wanted to go straight through because this is coming up on the June ballot. There is a basis that Los Angeles will get its fair share. As I mentioned, the Mid-Valley Regional Branch Library was a benefactor of this similar type bond in an earlier state bond issue. Los Angeles County carries these bond issues very strongly, and we will get support for this, and I believe there are 4 libraries, if I could recall, 4 libraries that have been designated potentially as possible funding sources from this bond.
Okay, then I would just maybe
And 2 of them are in the valley, I believe, if I
maybe I
remember
would
right.
request a friendly amendment to support this bond, but also direct our department staff to begin the process of preparing in the event of approval of this bond, and we certainly hope that it is approved, to do their part, whether it's filing applications with the state or any administrative steps that need to be taken to immediately upon its passage begin to line up for some of these dollars.
Great, and it's a friendly amendment accepted by the author, and please send a copy of that friendly amendment to the librarian. Ask her to send a memo to all council members on the action plan that they already have developed. Thank you, Mr. Padilla.
Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Anybody else wishing to be heard on this item? If not, Madam Clerk, please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. Forthwith on that?
Forthwith.
You got that, Mr. Labange. We'll go forthwith on that. And that takes us to our last item, item 55.
Item 55, called special by Councilmember Reyes.
Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to ask my colleague, Councilmember Wesson, to speak to this issue, and then I'll follow up on our objective here.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. This morning, Mr. Reyes and I announced that we were going to have joint hearings of the Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee and the Planning and Land Use Committee in the community to address the concern of the depletion of our rental and rent-controlled properties. We will be having hearings throughout the city in areas that has been brought to our attention are the most effective. The first hearing will be on May 9th at 6 p.m. at the First Unitarian Church. The second hearing will be held at the Wall Grove Elementary School on Monday the 22nd at 6 p.m. And the third hearing will be at Los Angeles Valley College Monarch Hall on Wednesday the 31st at 6 p.m. These series of hearings was born out of the concern that, again, we were losing rental units and rent-controlled units. I can say that in the district that I represent, every day we've seen applications on 2 or 3 units. We recognize that this is a very complex problem. So what Mr. Reyes and I wanted to do, also other council members have expressed their concern. What we had hoped to do was to analyze this issue from top to bottom, and at the end of the day, come up with some solutions that are fair and equitable to all. The renters that need this property, but also we want to be very sensitive to the property owners, in particular the mom and pop owners who have invested most of their money in the property that they own. So we recognize that this is a very difficult item, but Ed and I also recognize that leadership is not about doing what you want to do, that leadership is about doing what you have to do. So we're going to roll up our sleeves, take on this controversial issue, and then hopefully make some recommendations to the other members of this body that make sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wesson. The rest of your time, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. I want to thank my colleague, Councilmember Wesson. He's right. This is a difficult issue. But from our perspective, it's not just a housing issue. This is about the future of this city and how we create an environment where businesses, where property owners understand that we need a place where workers, folks that can find this place inviting enough to invest in with businesses, can actually have a labor pool that they can resort to. But when you have the kinds of change that are occurring, where you have a condition where you have to make $20 an hour just to afford the rent today in Los Angeles, the median housing price is $500,000. So when you look at over 70% of the city being renters, the question becomes, where will they live? I mentioned before that there are so many folks today that are suffering the tsunami of being displaced with the phasing out of Section 8. Over 3,000 housing units already converted to condos from 2001 to 2005. It's increasing. When we look at the millions of dollars we spent in improving our libraries, our schools, our parks, what's natural to the market is those areas become more desirable, which means those places become more expensive. So for whom are we investing into the city when the regular Joe, the middle class, and the working class cannot afford to live in the city? And now it's compounded with the rise of gas prices. Where are they going to live and how are they going to pay for that commute? Now we've seen some of these epic stories given the number of people that have come when they've let us know that they're being displaced. Where will they live? I have families, seniors, who are right now wringing their hands trying to figure out, do I pay for my medication? Do I pay for my food? Or do I spend 70% of what I earn through my fixed income for housing? So they are one check away from living in the streets. We already have families living in vans, but more importantly, it's affecting the majority of the city. My colleagues, we have friends whose kids are now coming back from college. Where are they going to live? So it's affecting every layer of our city. These hearings is about understanding from the Apartment Association, Homeowner Association, the investors, the bankers, the financiers, and taking on this issue. And we hope we can get your support in trying to find a solution. Thank you very much, Councilmember Wesson.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Ms. Gruhl is our next speaker, to be followed by Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, and I want to acknowledge the leadership of Mr. Wesson and Mr. Reyes on this issue that is impacting us all over the city of Los Angeles, and the willingness to hear from the public, to try to balance, as we talked about this morning in a press conference, balance the needs of the renters as well as those that own the properties. But I think recognition of a problem is the first step to being able to look at incentives and in some instances disincentives from taking some of that rental housing off the market. Colleagues, I had in the last month more than 150 people in one block receive notices of eviction, which is changing their lives forever, many of them elderly who have lived in that location. So I'm just pleased that we're having these hearings and that all stakeholders will be represented at those meetings, and that particularly in my district on May 31st, we will be having it at Valley College, which I think is so critically important, and encourage the public to participate. I was impressed, Mr. Rosendahl, because I was reading some of my emails, and there's already a simple send newsletter out of your office notifying them of the location in your district. So I encourage all individuals to make sure, but again want to personally thank and acknowledge the leadership of Mr. Wesson and Mr. Reyes on addressing this issue. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. I seem to be bopping up every other item here, and they're all very passionately important to me. First, I want to thank Herb Wesson and Ed Reyes for their leadership on this. You know, Herb brings to the table around this horseshoe the former speakership of the State Assembly. He knows the politics of Sacramento, and we need to deal with Sacramento on this issue. Roughly 10,000 units have switched hands in the last period of time throughout this great city, and it has gone from apartments to condos. Look, no profits over people. People first, profits second. In my district, as I'm standing here today, we are in negotiations on Lincoln Place. I'm always a cautiously optimistic person, and I always believe we can find a way out. Bottom line is, I'm losing hundreds of my constituents every month in the 11th District to condo conversions. 50% of my constituents live in apartment buildings. This is affordable housing. We talk about building affordable housing. We have affordable housing. What we need to do is preserve our affordable housing. We cannot let profit over people dominate the politics of housing. So, when we do the hearing, that's right, and I want to thank Wendy Groves. She's so good. She's not only aware of everything in the city, but she's on the email trail and saw an email we sent out. We sent an email out because on May 22nd at the Walgrove School at 6 o'clock, my community from Venice and Mar Vista and Westchester and Playa del Rey and Palms, West LA, Brentwood and the Palisades are going to come together, and they're going to point out that what we need to do is preserve middle-class housing. Sure, many of us own our own homes at this point. We're grateful for that, but our children or grandchildren, our other relatives will never be able to live in the 11th District if we don't preserve affordable housing. The big deal is going to be how to fine-tune, tweak, or change the Ellis Act, which is a Sacramento issue. I am convinced that the residents of Los Angeles want to see mixed use. They want to see all kinds of people living in all kinds of neighborhoods. And actually, the West Side Beach community should not be just for high-end people. It should be for all the people in the city. So I, again, want to thank my colleagues for holding a press conference this morning, for taking real leadership on this issue, and I'm looking forward to May 22nd and my constituents expressing themselves about this vital need for preserving affordable housing. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Let me add my thanks to Mr. Weston and Mr. Reyes as well. If we can open the roll on this item, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. I believe, Mr. Parks, you wanted 14 to go forthwith as well? If we can send 14 forthwith, please. That finishes our regular agenda. If we can please call the roll for the special meeting.
Cardenas, Gruel, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Padilla, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti, 14 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Okay. Before we go into closed session on item 1, which we'll hold on the desk for closed session, I'd like to recognize the city attorney to... Okay, why don't we recess that, return to the regular meeting, because he has to announce in the regular meeting our action that we took yesterday on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals case. Mr. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. President. During the closed session discussion of yesterday's item number 46 regarding the Ninth Circuit case Jones versus City of Los Angeles, an action was taken unanimously approving a portion of amending motion number 46A, directing the chief legislative analyst to report to the City Council in 60 days on potential alternatives to Municipal Code Section 41.18D. A second portion of the motion directing that an appeal filed by the city attorney be postponed or denied until alternative ordinances to serve both goals described in the amending motion can be identified and evaluated failed to attain a majority of vote by a vote of 3 to 8. Council members Weiss, Rosendahl, and Huizar voting in the affirmative. Council members Gruel, Parks, Zine, and Reyes were absent.
Thank you very much, Mr. City Attorney. We can return to the special meeting now. In accordance with our California state law, we'll now go into executive session to discuss this legal matter that is before us. If we can please clear the room of all members of the public, and we will announce any actions that we took that need to be announced publicly after we finish that decision from closed session. Thank you.
Good morning. We are back in open session. Mr. Clerk, next item. Will you conclude the special agenda and move back to the regular agenda?
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Those will be moved and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Garcetti requests to be excused to leave at 11:15 on Tuesday, May 9th for city business, and for the entire meeting Friday, June 2nd for personal business. Both of those meet council policy.
Mr. Garcetti is excused.
And Councilmember Labange requests to be excused to arrive at 11:30 on Wednesday, May 24th for city business. That also meets council policy.
Mr. Labange is excused.
That clears the desk, Madam President.
Thank you. Colleagues, any announcements today? Yes, Mr. Labange.
Friday, we're going to be in Van Nuys City Hall, but I will be at Immaculate Heart High School where they celebrate their 100th anniversary. Immaculate Heart High School, formed by the Sisters of the Immaculate Heart, bought 10 acres of land for $15,000 at Western and Franklin outside the city limits. Over all these 100 years in this great centennial celebration, over 9,000 graduates of young women have gone to Immaculate Heart. It's one of the great schools in Los Angeles. I will be there at their centennial celebration, and I just wanted to wish them well and salute all Immaculate Heart graduates, and plus the sisters, the nuns, the dedicated women of Immaculate Heart for all the years who worked there, including my late great aunt, Sister Frances Labange, who for many years was a great educator there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. I'd like to, Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Madam President. I have my hat on as a veteran, and it's a heavy hat to have on. I lost a lot of my friends during the Vietnam War, and I'll never recover totally from that experience of losing my comrades. This morning at 9 o'clock, Councilman Jack Weiss and myself and Supervisor Zev Yaroslavsky stood with hundreds of veterans as well as community activists, outraged that the federal government is trying to slip a piece of land, 10 acres of land, that was dedicated to veterans into the public sector and to put it up for sale. I don't care how mismanaged their federal government is, they're not going to have us bail them out with land that is land for veterans. So Supervisor Yaroslavsky announced that he was going to file a lawsuit. And Councilman Weiss and I have put a motion, just FYI among us, to discuss that issue and ask the CLA's office to further deal with it. I want to thank my colleagues and my comrades, veterans, who were standing there today saying no land grab. That land is for veterans. The blood of veterans is right there. We're in another war in Iraq. And if we don't take care of our veterans, what good are we as a nation? Half of the homeless issues that Jan Perry has been dealing with have to do with homeless veterans that actually need shelter. That 10 acres of land should revert right back to the veterans' property there and be used for services and facilities for veterans. And we as a city will take action necessary. But I have my hat on, it's a heavy hat today, to say we have to protect and defend our veterans in this great city. Thank you.
President, may I just salute Mr. Rosendahl, all of us on this side salute you here, Ms. Hahn, Mr. Weezer, Mr. Cardenas, Ms. Gruhl, all of us. Thank you for your service as a veteran. Also, thank you for the fight on this. What we really need to do out there, and it will be a fight, is build more housing for veterans.
There you go.
You mentioned the challenges. I know Councilmember Bobby Schreiber is leading the effort there to speak of that. More housing for veterans on the Sawtelle facility, because it's so sad when you meet or greet those who may be in the streets of Los Angeles who served this country, whether it was in Vietnam or in the Gulf War, and they found that they're down on their luck and they don't have any help, and the Veterans Administration step up. So we'll support you on that. But we need to build some housing out there. Build a nice tower that covers that area, and put housing for veterans out there.
Thank you, Tom.
And thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. We appreciate your fight as well. There's empty buildings on that site, which the Veterans Administration has not allowed us to use for homeless veterans programs that we've been trying to
I
do.
know, what's so
we should-
crazy is we have underutilized facility, not excess land. We need the leadership to be there for the veterans. And I say to the federal government, enough is enough. If you got deficit spending issues, deal with it another way, not off the backs of veterans.
Well, you have a number of us that are on your side. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Perry had an announcement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to do this on behalf of Mr. Parks. Everyone is invited to a community open house Thursday, May the 4th, on behalf of Mr. Parks and the Los Angeles County MTA on the Expo Light Rail Construction Authority to hear an update on the project. Thursday, today, March the 4th, 6:30 p.m., Dorsey High School, 3527 Farmdale Avenue.
Mr. Reyes.
Yes, I just wanted to announce one more time the hearings on the conversion of apartments to condos on May 9th, Tuesday, at the First Unitarian Church at 2936 West 8th Street in Westlake. It'll be the first of 3 hearings. This would cover the Northeast Center City area. This would be the hearing that we would hope you could attend to speak to this issue. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Wesson.
Madam President, I just want to piggyback on what Ms. Perry said. I know that Councilman, former Chief Parks, is the master at announcing meetings, but I did want to get up. It was my plan to get up and ask people from the community to go to that. But I want to take this time to say that it is the commitment that I sit on this authority with Councilmember Perry and with Councilmember Parks. And one thing that we've heard is the community feels as though, or felt as though, that the MTA, when this was under their control, did not dialogue with them, afford them the opportunity to give input. So the 3 of us are committed to ensure that we have these meetings with some regularity so that community people can actually come and see exactly what's going on, not misinformation, disinformation, and this also affords them an opportunity to give suggestions and their opinions. So I hope that all of the residents that will be affected by the Expo line will come out to Dorsey High School tomorrow. The address is 3537 Farmdale Avenue. The meeting begins at 6:30.
Thank you, Mr. Wesson. Yes, Mr. Cardenas.
Yes, I'd just like to remind those of you who are tuning in that this Friday, May 5th, in the Van Nuys City Hall, we're going to have our monthly City Council meeting at 10 a.m. at the Van Nuys Civic Center in the renovated City Hall, your City Hall of the Valley, at 10 a.m. this Friday, May 5th, and we will continue to have them every first Friday of the month, thanks to Greg Smith, our councilman, who carried that matter and made sure that we had the technology and the wherewithal and the ability to have an off-site meeting once a month regularly, and that's commenced, and it'll continue with this Friday, May 5th at 10 a.m. in the community of Van Nuys in the San Fernando Valley at 10 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas. We have adjourning motions today?
I have
Yes.
an announcement as well, Ms.
Yes, Mr. Huizar.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm happy to announce that this Saturday at Evergreen Recreation Center in Boyle Heights, we're receiving, or the park is receiving, a beautiful new Dodger Dream Field baseball diamond, and CD14 is co-hosting a dedication ceremony this Saturday, May 6th at 10 a.m. What's special about this place as well is that I played baseball there as a young boy. And special thanks to our partners in this effort, the Los Angeles Dodgers, Dodgers Dream Foundation, Bank of America, and the Amateur Athletic Foundation of Los Angeles. Mr. Labange, that's where I learned how to play baseball, and I went out to Salesian High School to play baseball, second base and shortstop.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Well, that's great. There's nothing like a field, and there's nothing like Evergreen. We used to play in the City Hallers at Evergreen. I used to play at Evergreen in a great little park, and now it's going to be a greater. Thank you for your leadership, Jose, and the leadership of the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Dream Foundation. These beautiful sports fields that really make anyone who lives in metropolitan Los Angeles doesn't have the great fields that they have sometimes out in the outlying areas, but now they have Class A fields. It's exciting to see that. Thank you.
Thank you. We have adjourning motions. If we could ask everyone to please rise. Mr. Labange.
Ms. Greer, I'd like to ask that you join with me in this. Clovis Mark McKenzie, a member of the city family, Department of Transportation, fixed all the parking meters, worked over at Piper Tech 24 years, was a few weeks short of his retirement, tragically passed. He was well liked by all his co-workers, and he'd been with the city for 24 years. I ask we adjourn in memory of Clovis Mark McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Any other adjourning motions? If not, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Just one other announcement. The Budget and Finance Committee will be starting at 3:30 today here in the council chambers.